rarely, rarely might read it and work because it's bought, but I actually would rarely go out and buy it. It's just become so easy to view the information online, so it was rarely. The occasional Evening Herald into something specific, but other than that, no.
Just to fall out of the habit. I'd be like Gareth, if I do buy a paper, I actually prefer, I don't like reading stuff on. I prefer if I had the opportunity to read the paper rather than in a tactile thing, read the paper, but no, I wouldn't go to newspaper websites at all, funny enough. Sunday paper only. I used to buy papers every day, but Sunday paper no only.
Definitely once a week, yeah.
For the whole week you're working, you're checking your iPhone all the time, you're getting the news on laptop.
No, you're kind of in the younger generation, you've got Twitter.
Everything, but then by the end of the week you feel like, I haven't read a real newspaper, so I'll go out on Sunday and maybe get one and spend like maybe 15 minutes on it or half an hour.
I don't ever buy a newspaper like that. If I wanted to find something, I'd go online.
Yeah.
I buy the Sunday Times and the Sunday Independent.
You can't refresh a newspaper though, you know.
You can open in 10 minutes. Bigger.
Don't follow a journalist, just follow the news.
Newspapers have maybe lost a little bit of their purpose in terms of a printed media.
It is something that they really, it's a habitual thing, and it's something that they get pleasure out of.
I think there's still people who want to read them. Like my father will never go for any, like we bought him a Kindle, tried to persuade him, got him a subscription newspapers. He just has to have the newspaper in front of him, and he can't get used to the idea of not.
My mother would be very, she has a laptop, she has an iPhone, so she'd be very into the technology, and she does go online, she books her holidays online, and she does all that. She would never read a newspaper online.
BBC.
RTE.
Multitude.
Breaking News Guy. Joe.ie.
The Journal.ie, that's probably quite a good one. I think Cranks populate politics.ie, so and the BBC's for some feature stories, or for feature stories for the BBC and RTE maybe.
I'd use the combination of the various different websites, plus I would use the Irish Independent app regularly enough on the iPhone. Yes.
The RTE News app as well is very good.
Yeah, RTE News.
Absolutely.
Sky News as well is a very good app.
Definitely look at the Irish Times and the Irish Independent.
BBC as well.
That online, it's RTE News. That's the one I look at. It's not necessarily a newspaper though.
Probably more now.
I think this is the read more than before.
Yeah,
you're inundated.
It's so easy to just tap into it.
People are looking less the television probably. Because
you have
you have
everywhere.
updated news on the web, on internet.
Yeah, I'm not sure they're reading an awful lot anymore. I think it's more visual than listening.
But I think people are sourcing more news. I don't think people are less interested in news. I think they're definitely out to source more. Personally, I feel I'd be sourcing more news, but I'm not but I'm reading it less.
I think unless you're really interested in the story, you're only going to read the headlines.
Right.
You don't tend to go into every
true.
single story. It's only the one you're interested in. And again, you're not going to read the whole thing. You just read. Well, for me, I just read the bits that are interesting to me, and then the ones I'm not. So it doesn't bother me to read it on the phone. I'd actually rather read it on the phone than have a big newspaper.
Yeah.
If I get a newspaper on Sunday, I'll read every part of it. I'll read it from front to back, everything in it. But apps and that, I just scan the news.
The news now, you just basically take snapshots of it and kind of pick what you want yourself, make your own perceptions of what they're actually saying.
I check my news apps just as regularly as I check the email, almost just for a quick snapshot to see if there's been any update. But one news app that's particularly good, I think, is the Journal, because the Journal.ie is sort of interactive, and actually it's almost just as fun to read the comments without actually interacting with the comments. But you can like or you can dislike, and so actually the news itself, while it's interesting, it's actually the comments and the You get all these people on with their own views on it, and they're anonymous, so they can say whatever the hell they want. And I think that's very interesting, the journal particularly. Some people have agendas on it, but other people are just giving their opinion,
Yeah.
And actually the stories are updated and corrections are submitted. You can submit a correction to the person who's written the article if there's an infactual statement, or the story itself changes, the words change. It's quite reactive. It's not a static article where there's no changes whatsoever. The headline might be the same, but all of a sudden you check the article again and they've amended the text a little bit.
The journal app is quite good, and you can follow the comments. That's what's interesting about that one is the reaction any given story. Like how was it when Off the Ball resigned from News Talk? So there's huge reaction, and within 2 hours 50,000 people had read the article on the journal. So you're then following the comments, seeing what the reaction is, what do people think about this. So that's kind of interesting.
I think just one thing on the journal, I'd look at that quite a bit, and I like the way the journalists, like their photograph is at the bottom, and their email address is even there. So there's something more real about it. Like sometimes the newspaper article doesn't even have a byline, and it's a bit anonymous. And I don't know. I would. My perception of it is that it's more. You can make your own judgment of it, but it's actually a real person that's written it.
I would look at the journal.ie a lot as well, and then the comments below that. I know from talking to a guy, say with the Irish Times, they have comments for articles, but they censor a lot of comments because if they're libelous or contentious.
Well, you go to a reputable one, if you know what I mean, rather than something reputable that you would consider reputable, like the BBC News or the Irish Times or something like that.
But if you look at it from the journal's point of view, what you're suggesting is that if we recognise the Independent is recognised as a paper newspaper, would we go and visit their website more likely? Well, it's not the case when you look at the journal, because the journal doesn't have a print publication.
Yeah.
And I think it's the attraction of immediate news and immediate changes to stories that takes people away from the newspaper media, And I think as time goes on, the likes of the Independent and the Times will become, their broadsheets and their papers will become much less important. I wouldn't be surprised if in 5 years' time the journal has a higher readership than the likes of the Independent and Times. I'm not basing that on anything other than my own opinion.
But if you're at home, at home I have the iPhone, I have an iPad, and a laptop. I won't clear the laptop anymore. Because
it's iPad.
I can just do that.
I
couldn't be bothered getting up to get the laptop.
Or even get the iPad.
Even the iPad sometimes is outside. This is just
convenience.
It's an attachment to you. It is an extension. It's possible our view generally will change, but at the moment I just couldn't. I see no reason to pay or subscribe for news. It's just news to me is the most freely available information out there. There are so many sources.
And I'd question though, because most things you can get free now online, that it would have to be good quality. Because if you can get the same stuff elsewhere free, like BBC News or RTE.
I will download anything and everything before I go out and buy it.
Yeah, even because you see your news and then all around there are advertisements. So I'm kind of the company that have advertisement there are already paying for me. So why have to pay?
So someone else had just open up a website the day after it was free and make their money off advertising.
Yeah.
Because the advertisements on newspapers now, you can just flick past them if you want, or you can look at them if you don't want. Sometimes they can be a little bit imposing on the apps where they take over the whole screen and you've got to minimise it and a little bit more distracting. If to get the balance right, in terms of how they actually place the ads on the online media, it should work pretty well. It's not about the amount of money you're paying for it.
Yeah.
If it was a once-off payment for access, I'd probably pay it if I found the application good or whatever. But I don't want to take my wallet out, take my credit card, put in my CCV number, expiry date, order form and all that kind of stuff. If I could pay €100 one-off fee for a brilliant app, I'd probably pay it. But I don't want to pay. I don't have to take my credit card out the whole time, you know?
I don't think you do it for a day because that would mean, like, you only kind of want to watch something as it pops up in front of you. Like, oh, I want to watch that, so you pay 3 cents. Like, you're not going to say, oh, I paid €3.50 now, so I'm going to spend the day looking at stuff just to get my money's worth, you know?
Yeah.
It's just it's convenience. It's convenience, you know. But there's certain things I just wouldn't pay for, you know, that you can just get freely. But if they make it easy, like I bought stuff in the App Store that I probably, you know, just bought for a trial because it's like, do you know what? You're asking about a reasonable price. $1.39 is a reasonable price. That's what I think.
79 cents.
Once it starts going into like 3, 4, 5, 8 euros, you start going, well, like, okay, it's small money, right? And you buy a packet of cigarettes for $10 and you don't even think about it. But you know, below €2 for me is just a bang, bang. Don't even think about it. You're right though that Apple makes it very easy to spend money, you know, as opposed to, you know, I was talking about filling in the details and stuff. It is kind of easy to just click on a button and, you know, like you said there, like if it was an event, like you'd happily go, €2, you know, we'll get access to the Masters or I'll get to watch this football match. But like if it was the Apple model, like it is kind of easy to just click and pay, you know.
So you get the news live. So if somebody had an app that facilitated all of that, would I buy the app? I would. But for the app, the facilitation as opposed to the content that others are providing the content. So I'm not paying for the content as such. I'm paying for the app.